In these two movies, we're going to look at our options for dealing with errors in PHP. During the course of testing any of our projects, we're inevitably going to come across quite a few of PHP's error messages, and very possibly, despite our best efforts, our end users are at one point or another going to end up seeing one of these error messages as well. Now, the kind of error message that we really don't want our users to have to see is the standard error message that's put out by PHP when it runs across an error. Let's take a look at one of our scripts. This one we made in a previous chapter. This one is for dealing with the feedback that a user gives when visiting a hypothetical website. What we're going to do is introduce arbitrary syntactic error into the code. Now, we have the db variable here, and if we introduce an extra letter, then the dbn variable has never been set, is therefore empty or null, and MySQL selectDB function attempts to carry out the selection of a database on a non-existent connection. This will inevitably generate an error. Let's save our script, and we're going to go back to the HTML page which contains the form with the data that we're going to send. As you can see, I've put some random dummy data in to test this script, and we're going to try and submit this form and see what happens when PHP runs across our deliberate error. Now, two things are wrong here. First thing that's wrong is that we really don't want to see this, because if it can't do what it intends to do, then we don't want to be seeing any comment to the effect that the comments have been effectively added to the database. They haven't. Our PHP script is broken down, as we can see from this error message. The other thing that's wrong with this page is that this is really an ugly error message. This is very useful to us as programmers because it tells us what script the error's on, exactly what line the error happened, and what kind of error it was. This error was a warning. There are different grades of errors which we'll get into later on in the next movie, and this tells us what kind of problem it came across when it generated the error. So what can we do, first of all, to avoid getting this thank you message that we shouldn't be seeing, and also to replace this error here with something more user-friendly? Let's take a look at our script. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the die command. And what the die command does is it works very similar to the exit command we looked at in an earlier chapter, and that is it terminates execution of the script. As soon as a die command is carried out, the script will stop. The difference is that die allows you to generate some kind of message to explain to the user why everything stopped at that point. We use the die command in this case in conjunction with the OR statement, and that is set up with this syntax, and we're simply going to say, as our error message couldn't select database, let's save that, go back to our browser, go back to the previous page, and submit the data again. As we can see, our custom error message has come up beneath the ugly error message. Now, this page is slightly better. For one thing, we've got our custom error message coming up, and we haven't got the spurious thanks, we've entered your comments on the database, which came below erroneously. So clearly the user knows that the comments haven't been added. However, we're still getting this very ugly error message, as well as our custom error message that we specified. So what can we do about this? First of all, if we go back to our script, at the beginning of this line we can add an ampersand followed by a space. All this does is suppresses the generation of any standard errors that might be put out by this line being executed. If we save that, go back to our browser and submit the form data again, as we can see, this line on its own has been output. No ugly standard error message to confuse the user.